Thank you. Good morning. I know early after bowling and apparently there was karaoke. Was there karaoke? No, there was no karaoke. The football game kept on going for too long. Thank you for joining me in the classroom today and learn about DevOps lessons from a primary school teacher. I'm Timothy Marmor. I put company there as me, myself, and I because I've just transitioned to freelancing. There's a story behind that. Feel free to come and ask me about it. So, as I said, this is me, Tim, a bit hairier, probably chubbier as well, since that photo has been taken. I'm not trying to catfish anyone. That's the photo I use. Those are my contact details. I do not use social media. I'm too old for that. And grumpy, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn is probably the best thing. I'm a platform specialist, mainly because I had no clue what to put down. I actually studied aerospace engineering. I worked as an automotive engineer for a number of years, designing and integrating the system integration of hybrid vehicles, and then transitioned into cloud, IT, platform engineering, used Kubernetes, infrastructure for the last 7 years, so I didn't know really what to do, so I put on platform specialist because it sounds cool. But one thing I'm not is a primary school teacher. In fact, this is my lovely partner who is a primary school teacher, and this talk came from talking to her and understanding how she deals with kids and how she teaches kids and understanding pedagogy, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, which is basically the study of how to teach and learn, and what she does in helping kids learn. I could not entertain 20 kids for more than 5 minutes, unlike what I'm currently doing, maybe. So, welcome to DevOps lessons from a primary school teacher. But before I go into the lessons, I want to talk about DevOps and Calms specifically. So Calms is a framework which allows you to understand where you are in your process in understanding DevOps and implementing DevOps. So this was first coined by Jess Humble, who co-authored the DevOps Handbook and Accelerate, 2 books which I highly recommend you use. With Calms, as engineers, we're usually fairly confident with automation, lean, measurement. Those are engineering terms we like and use, but not really much about culture and sharing, the human aspect of it, the ones where we have to start interacting with people. So if you're here for more coding, similar to what Victor just did, I'm afraid you might want to shift room. I won't be using Kubernetes as much, even though this is Kubernetes Community Days. I'll be talking about the culture and sharing aspect of it. But before we go into the lessons, just like every classroom, I expect a bit of interaction. And within the classroom, what people use are hand gestures. Now, good hand gestures. And hand gestures are used to ensure that when the teacher is doing the teaching, is going through the lesson, they understand whether whether the kids are understanding the lesson, they agree, disagree, have questions, other ulterior ways of doing things. So similarly, I want this interaction with you during our lessons. And to not disrupt my talk, I'll want you to use these hand gestures. So give me a thumbs up if you agree with me whenever I say something. A fist if you disagree, and feel free to disagree with me. Or the shaka sign if you have a different opinion or something else. So, agree? Yeah. Cool, awesome. So, our first lesson is actually a theory. It's called the zone of proximal development. And the zone of proximal development allows you to understand how to teach kids. The zone of proximal development tells you where you need to be for kids to learn. So, for example, when the teacher starts teaching kids how to add, they start off by adding in tens. And they want the children to be in the green zone. If they're in the blue zone, they're too confident, they already know it, they're not really learning. And if they're in the red zone, it's too difficult for them to learn. They cannot comprehend it. So they want to be in the green zone. So what you do is you teach them how to add in 10. They get confident in that. They're in the green zone. As they get confident, they transition towards the blue zone. And then you start teaching them how to add in 20s. And that pushes them into the green zone, so on and so forth, in 30s, 50s, 100s, and finally thousands. So in essence, it's actually what you have to do before you teach them how to add, you need to teach them how to count. You cannot really go from counting to addition into thousands. And this is important in our industry because you cannot expect, engineers and software engineers, and I know there are some students around, well, maybe it's a little bit too early for students. You cannot expect them to learn, a PHP programming, and PHP is still valuable, not everything has to be in Go or Rust, to how networking, I saw somebody disagree about that one, thanks. How networking on Kubernetes works, how service meshes work. You cannot expect them to transition from simple programming to the networking and intricacies of Kubernetes. So conferences like this, community conferences like this, where you allow people to learn and be in that ZPD zone are extremely important. So this is a message towards the managers and the people who allow engineers to come to the conferences. These conferences are extremely important to be in that ZPD zone. Next lesson is my turn, our turn, your turn. And every time I put a slide like this with these big words, these are actual concepts primary school teachers use. They are actually really interesting and fun. So my turn, our turn, your turn is the concept where a teacher teaches the kids. So for example, let's go back to the previous example, addition, where the teacher takes my turn to teach the kids how to do it. They'll explain how to add numbers on the whiteboard. They'll go through the process. They then go our turn, where the teacher asks the kids to also interact. So the kids will tell the teacher how to implement addition. And then through that process, maybe some get it a bit wrong, the teacher helps them, and that's our turn of learning. And finally, your turn, where the kids go on their own and do addition on their own. They still have the board and the teacher there to help if needed, but that's the process of doing this. And within our industry, we can do this through pair programming. Who here knows about pair programming? Who here uses pair programming? Half-ish. But pair programming is extremely important. And you can use this in a my turn, our turn, your turn process, where you have my turn, which is tour guide programming. You have an experienced engineer programming and showing maybe a junior engineer how to do things. So that's my turn. And then our turn, where you have the driver navigator pair programming type of process, which gets the junior engineer to tell how to program, to tell the senior engineer how to program. And then finally, the engineer will do it. Your turn will go and program on their own. So this process allows junior engineers to grow a lot faster and learn a lot faster. Next one is give one, get one. So this is the concept where the teacher asks kids to think about a subject. So I don't know, dinosaurs, for example. And the teacher tells them, write down something you know about dinosaurs. So everybody writes down something they know about dinosaurs. And once they have that bit of information, that one information, they go around the classroom and they give one, so they give their information to the other kids around them, and they get one from the other kids. And this process allows, the teacher to understand what is the base knowledge of dinosaurs for the kids. So they understand where to start the lesson. And it also ensures that, as a group, their level of information increases. Now, again, within our industry, this knowledge harvesting technique is quite useful at the very beginning of a project. So you get into a round table, and as engineers, we each tell, what's the aim of the project. You want to write an AI chatbot because everybody's doing AI nowadays. You go around the table and you understand each and everybody's strength and understanding of what an AI chatbot is. This ensures that you have all the tools and knowledge needed to achieve the final goal. And if you don't, you make sure you ask the people or go on courses about LLMs or whatever AI chatbots need. Next one is talking chips. And I've given this talk a few times, and I think this is probably the most, the highest lesson which people enjoy. They all come to me and go, yep, we're definitely using this one. So talking chips is extremely useful to ensure that everybody gets involved. Now, what happens is the teacher gives talking chips to each and every kid. They don't use poker chips because you shouldn't be giving poker chips to kids. But you can actually buy these chips. They're usually one side is yellow and the other side is red. So you give talking chips to the kids. They're usually in groups, let's say of 5 kids. And each kid gets 3 to 5 chips accordingly. You then tell every kid they need to use either all of the chips or a minimum amount. So if you give them 5 chips, every kid has to use 3 to 5 chips. And you can also set a time limit. So if you're Mediterranean, like myself, who doesn't stop talking, you've got to, each chip has a limit of 2 minutes. You need to get your point across within those 2 minutes, otherwise you've wasted that chip. So this ensures that everybody gets involved. And again, within our industry, this is extremely useful. Who here has been in a Scrum planning session? Not that I'm advocating for Scrum. And only the tech lead and maybe one other engineer talk, and everybody else is sitting down and not doing anything. Yeah, a fair few, say 75% at least. So talking chips is a way to make sure everybody gets involved. Now, I understand that initially it might be a bit daunting to have to get involved, but the more you get involved, the more you want to use, the more you're hooked into the project. And therefore, you're more keen to actually be in that project and not complain about doing work which you don't understand. You need to get involved, and talking chips is one method to ensure everybody does get involved. The penultimate lesson is expert groups. Now, expert groups is a way to ensure, the common knowledge of the classroom is elevated. So what happens here is the teacher divides the class into different groups, so group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and tells each group to research about a specific topic. For example, the Mesozoic era, which is the dinosaur, the big reptile era, 250 to 65 million years ago. And each group is assigned a specific task, a specific expertise to learn. So one group gets to learn about dinosaurs, another group gets to learn about paleontology, another group gets to learn about extracting fossils safely, and another group becomes an expert in rock formation, for example. So after each group becomes an expert in that area, one kid from each group is now put into a new group. So group 1 has, so group A has somebody from group 1, somebody from group 2, group 3, group 4. Group B similarly, group C similarly, so on and so forth. And then within the group, they exchange ideas. And this increases the knowledge of all the children around. It also makes sure that the kids are learning how to do research and gain more knowledge. Now, within our industry, again, this can be related to enabling teams within team topologies. I won't go into a full description of team topologies because it's quite vast. I am a big fan of team topologies, so catch me later if you want to talk full on about team topologies. But basically, enabling teams ensure that knowledge within the company increases. So we know, and from research, that streamlined teams are happier and more productive when they start using, good technology, latest technology, are at the forefront of technology. But because they're always churning out products and value for the company, it might be difficult for them to get that expertise. So enabling teams allows streamlined teams to ensure that that knowledge is possible and can be given to other teams without wasting the time of trying to figure out what, how, why, and when. And finally, higher order questions. So, Socrates defined teaching as the art of asking questions. And a primary school teacher will actually, a good primary school teacher will actually ask approximately 100 to 120 questions an hour when teaching. Now, most of these questions will be procedural questions. Are you done? Have you got everything? So on and so forth. But you also need higher order questions, because higher order questions allow kids to learn, to imagine, to grow. And you need to ensure that they allow them to, question themselves. They allow for discussion. So higher order questions are usually stuff like, what do you think, dinosaurs ate during that era? What do you think the people in Pompeii did when the volcano erupted? So on and so forth. These type of questions, higher order questions, are extremely important in learning because they allow the kids to, one, discuss and also imagine and elevate their knowledge. But so within our industry, we do need that kind of interaction. We need higher order questions, especially when interacting with juniors. Who here has been in a meeting and said, this could have been a effing email or a Slack message? So procedural questions like these can be sent, are needed, but are needed at the right time. So ensure that you ask procedural questions at the right point in time. And the other thing is that higher order questions, when you ask higher order questions, you need to allow for silence. You need to allow for people to think. And usually they say you need approximately 10 seconds to see if the person understood your higher order question. If not, you might want to rephrase it. Now, 10 seconds might not seem a lot, but 10 seconds of silence can be almost killing, especially for somebody like myself. In fact, I'm going to do a test. I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to be a procedural question because I've got a short amount of time. And then I'm going to allow for 10 seconds of silence for you to answer me. So, was this talk useful or not? And I want to have a show of hands. That's 10 seconds. Cool, awesome. So I saw some fists and shaka signs. Great, come talk to me. I want to learn from you. Thank you for the others who gave me a thumbs up. But see, 10 seconds can be a bit daunting. But what that allowed also is not only people to think for an answer, of the answer, but also other people to say, do I want to actually give my vote or not? And some people came in at a later stage. So, in conclusion, we can take lessons from primary school teachers and implement them into our industry. But it's not always lessons during school. I do get sometimes very interesting photos, like the one on your left, which is a scary pumpkin for Halloween. Yes, that is a pumpkin. The one in the middle, which is a cow with a very interesting tail. And the kid on the right, which is definitely going to be an engineer when he grows up. Cool. Okay, so these are the books I referenced during my talk. Highly suggest all of them, to be honest, especially team topologies. I think every company should be organizing themselves in a team topological way. Give a few seconds if people want to take photos. Yeah. So that's me, Tim. I actually wrote that buzzword the first time I gave a talk here at KCD Munich. I try to implement all buzzwords to make sure I've hit everybody. The last time I did this, somebody said, you forgot ML. I cannot hit them all. It'd be too long. Thank you. If you have any questions or comments, I'm here. Any comments, questions? I don't know if there's a mic. There's one at the very end. Is there a mic? Do we have a mic? I can hear you, but I don't know if they're recording the questions and they need a mic for that. Or tell me another repeat.
So there are different types of people.
Yeah.
How do you account for different types of people and how do you they consume information in different ways?
Yeah. Yeah. So is this related to the ZPD type? So within the first few slides, I talked about the zone of proximal development. So the question was, different types of people learn in different ways, and there are different levels as well. So a kid, for example, who is very good at maths, they might be in the green area when somebody else might be in the red. So yeah, perfect question. And yes, everybody learns at a different pace, at a different level, and this is where you need to understand who you're dealing with. So my partner as a teacher will have different levels of teaching. She'll actually teach at a base level, but then also understand which kids are higher ability and a slightly lower ability, and then give them different tasks. So yes, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So the ZPD zone, you might have 60% of the people who are in the green band, 20% in the blue band, and 20% in the red band. So you have to adapt appropriately. That is a little bit more work. This is why teachers spend a lot more time outside of teaching, preparing for lessons as well. But yeah, that's one way to deal with it. Asking questions also helps understand where they are in their learning process. Higher order questions, how do you think will you tackle this, or what are the tools you're going to use? Open-ended questions, preferably. Sorry, I got the lights in my face. Yep.
Yeah, I really like the analogy to children.
Yep.
Because it's very fitting in most cases.
You said it, not me. So I'm just going to repeat what he said. He's like the analogy with children because it's very fitting.
But yeah, even in children, there are different types of children.
Yep.
Some are more here and here.
Yep.
But in our case, the factor age comes on top of that.
Yep.
If you want to deal with different type of people, then I think age is a big factor which needs to be somehow respected when you approach people. And even, I know it's a prejudice, but to say people have some experience and are old, then convince them to do something different is much harder, I would say, to teach children.
Yeah. So just as an overview, the comment was there are also, apart from different levels of knowledge, there's also age, which usually, you expect some kind of either authority or respect or age-appropriate interaction. And I think you said there, try to convince them to do something, and that's probably where the issue is. don't want to convince them, you want to get them on board with what you're doing. And usually things like, talking chips to make sure they actually input, not expect them to say, oh, I know best, or, and don't interact. Higher order questions, why do you think this should be done this way? And also other tools like pair programming helps ensure they're giving their knowledge in a different way. So yeah, it's a lot more difficult because, again, with kids, so I ask so as I said in the beginning, I couldn't entertain 20 kids for more than 5 seconds, or 5 minutes, well, 5 seconds as well. And she said yes, but usually when kids are in a group, there is the group mentality as well, which is a little bit less maybe as you get older. So it's a little bit more work, but I think that work is needed to ensure people are more happy within their job. So yeah, higher order questions, definitely. I think higher order questions ensure people understand each other a lot more. If you have people who just don't want to interact with you, yeah, that's a different story. Yep. Nope. Yep. One last one.
For example, you have a team of 10 members.
Yep.
And you're talking to them and have a scrum meeting or a PB meeting, and you just have 3 people who are always talking.
Yep.
Don't talk anything. You can't force them to like a talking chip. Like we have to use it. Is there any way to, or a trick to get them involved anyway because they need to do something?
Yeah. I don't think it's forcing. So again, I feel like this is a very a personal question, maybe. I've been through it. So if you're in a group of 10, 10 engineers, you have a planning session, maybe 3 only talk, you've given them chips to interact and force them to talk. But I don't think it's a forcing situation. It's more a visual aid to show them you're not inputting into this group discussion. And usually the person who's leading will point at them and go, what do you think? Because it's very much a visual aid for them to say, oh, you still have all your chips there in front of you. What do you think? Yeah, and I understand initially it might be a little bit daunting to get people to start talking a bit, but I think the more you use that method, the more you have people using chips to go, oh yeah, I wanted to say something, and I throw a chip in front. It becomes a bit of a gamification situation to talk within the planning session. Initially, yes, it is hard, but it gets easier and easier, and you have to make that first step there to ensure people start talking. And talking chips is one of those visual aids which help. You also get the other people who talk too much, encouraging others to say something. Okay, I think that's it. But again, if you want to chat with me later. I'm running out of time. Thank you very much.